Hello, I want to talk about one of my favorite novels, Christopher Priest's book, The Affirmation. It's an underappreciated metafiction classic. It's about madness, memory, identity, and truth. It's not as funny as Nabokov's Pale Fire. It might not be as profound as McCarthy's duology, The Passenger, which are my other metafiction favorites. But it's fantastic storytelling that really draws you in. It's like a Venus flytrap. It's intractable. It just pulls you into these two dueling worlds of these two different narratives that are writing each other, which is fantastic. So when I say metafiction, I don't mean that it's about Christopher Priest. It's a piece of writing that draws attention to the fact that it's a piece of writing, and the authors are characters in each other's stories. It's also the first novel where he used the dream archipelago. This is a book that changed how I see novels and what novels can do, what storytelling can do, and I'll get into why as we talk about the plot. So the plot, it's about a guy named Peter who loses his mind. His father dies, he loses his job, his girlfriend leaves him, and he loses his apartment all at the same time, within like a few weeks of each other. He has a bit of a mental breakdown. A friend of the family lets him stay at their cabin out in the English countryside. So while he's out at this cabin, the deal is like he'll fix the place up, he'll paint the walls and take care of the garden and tidy the place up and just take care of it, but he can stay there as long as he wants and just kind of get his act together. So he decides to write his own memoirs. And as he's writing his memoirs, he's finding that his memory is kind of faulty. Like there's certain details that he remembers pretty clearly. Like he broke his left arm, but he looks in his family photo album and finds that he actually broke his right arm. So this is confusing for him. So he decides to scrap factuality altogether because what matters to him is the patterns and the relationships. That's what truth constitutes for him. He doesn't care about what actually happened. He cares about the human truth behind it all. And that's interesting because that's actually how memory kind of works, is by remembering what's meaningful or what's emotionally impactful rather than being like a perfect snapshot of what actually happened. So he starts from scratch with his memoirs, writing make-believe characters that represent people in his life in the real England. But he doesn't like this either because it's just kind of weird to have a real place with all these make-believe characters. So he scraps it again, and this time he gets it right. This time he gets it right by making up make-believe characters to represent the real characters, but he makes them in a make-believe world, the Dream Archipelago. So he's having a great time. He's able to completely retell his own story in this new environment with these new characters so that he can really start to understand himself. And it's going fantastic. As he's doing this, he's painting the walls, he's cleaning the gutters, he's taking care of the garden, and it's going great. He's almost finished. He has like the last line, of course, right? To do just the last line to finish. And then his sister shows up and ruins everything because she's basically reality crashing in. She's telling him, first of all, you haven't cleaned anything here. Like, you haven't been answering your calls, you haven't been answering your mail, and this place is a mess. It's a worse mess than when you came out here. You've made an embarrassment of yourself, basically. So his sister takes him away to her place, and he's humiliated, absolutely humiliated. The next chapter takes place in the Dream Archipelago. So this is the first real break with reality. After you had to acknowledge that he kind of lied to you earlier, like he wasn't actually cleaning the place up, who knows what's real. Now we're not even in England anymore. We're in the Dream Archipelago. We're in his memoirs. We're in the make-believe world of his memoirs. So the Dream Archipelago is a string of islands that goes on maybe forever. And they've got a kind of utopian feeling of freedom to them. It's a place where you can just travel from island to island. People are living their quaint lives. And each island has its own personality. But his story in the Dream Archipelago is that he won a lottery. And this lottery is a lottery for immortality. He has to go to some island where he can get some surgery, which will make him live forever. When he gets there, he is told that the way they do this is by wiping your memory clean and rebuilding your memory based on your memoirs. So he has to write memoirs in this dream world of the Dream Archipelago. So what he does is he writes memoirs using the same method of making up a whole new make-believe world called England. Then he starts telling that story, the story that we would think is the real world. And after that, it goes back and forth from one world to the other. It goes from England to the Dream Archipelago. And in the Dream Archipelago one, he's always kind of like a very reasonable guy who's living a pretty good life and just he's having like love affairs, and he's asking himself philosophical questions. Whereas in the world of England, he's clearly a messed up loser, and he clearly always has been. And I won't get into the details of all the way that he's messed up his life and the people he's hurt, but clearly he's trying to escape from that into the Dream Archipelago. The funny thing is that the Dream Archipelago starts to feel more real. It starts to feel like the real world, and it's like you'd kind of rather be there. And these two worlds start infecting each other, so that he's basically losing his mind in both of these stories. And by the end of it, like the way that the storytelling is so good that both of these worlds draw you in completely, and you want to see the best thing for him in each of these worlds. You don't want to see him leave either one behind. And the characters, you care about the characters in each one. It's really good storytelling. It's unsettling the way that he loses his mind in both of these worlds. Christopher Priest has a pretty good way of taking abstract ideas, embedding them in story with surreal manifestations. He does this in a few of his books. So like surrealism sometimes can seem indecipherable. But with Christopher Priest, even if you can't figure out logically what the surreal events mean, it still hits you the way it's supposed to hit you. He really manifests these abstract ideas with surreal phenomena. So yeah, he's really fantastic. If you're into metafiction or science fiction or just psychology, or you're looking for an interesting book to read, absolutely 100% Christopher Priest's book, The Affirmation. Thank you.